to mark and make sure that you annotate and make sure that you tabulate the scores for each section so that you are able to see how you've performed for that section, as well as reflect on some common errors that you are making across the different papers and sections that we've had. Okay, so at the end of today, all the content that we generate should go into your yellow or orange files. Okay, this video being recorded will be sent out to all of you by the end of today. So in case you miss a part of it, you're not able to stay for the entire session, or you join in late, do not worry. You'll be able to refer to the video for the complete annotations and corrections that you need to finish marking this paper, which is PhD paper 16, for those of you who happen to have the booklet. All right. So let's go. Question number 1. All right. So the teacher made the students. I'm sure y'all can see here that made the students, and the blank is following the verb, noun, verb configuration. Okay. And therefore, this verb must be in the base form. And base form simply means that the verb does not take on any prefixes or suffixes, meaning no S, no ED, no ING, right? No EN. It's simply the verb in its most basic form. Therefore, the answer is made the students memorize. Okay, this is the answer, right? Because it's in the base form following the verb, noun, verb configuration. Okay. Number 2, I refuse to mark your paper. So this is obviously a conditional, right? This is dependent on this, right? So this is a conditional. And it is not an if conditional, it's an unless conditional, right? So I refuse to mark your work, your paper or your work unless you complete your corrections. So when it is in the direction from back to front, it's unless. When it is in the direction from front to back, it's if, okay? So let's say I refuse to mark your paper unless you complete your corrections, right? If you want to flip it around, right, then you might say that, if you complete your corrections, I will mark your paper. So imagine if it goes in that direction, then it's if, okay? If is in this direction, which means that the conditional goes from front to back. Then it's if. If you complete your corrections, I will mark your paper. But in this case, since the I refuse to mark your paper is in front, right? The order is like reverse. So you use the conditional unless, okay? Number 3, if Alvin had explained the question thoroughly, and here I'm looking at a 2-verb structure, and then I'm stretching this over to the response here. Therefore, this response should follow the 3-verb structure. Remember the pattern, 2 is to 3, right? So in this case, I should discount all verbs, right, that have only one additional verb tagged onto it. It's either shall have or would have. So if Alvin had explained, I would have is obviously the correct answer, because would have tells you the consequence. So this one explains the consequence. Okay. Shall have explains more of an intention. Okay. An intention or a prediction. Okay. So this is wrong, huh? Because this has more of an intention, prediction meaning to it. So in this case, it's obviously a consequence of his proper explanation, right? So the answer is number 4. Number 4, the deep waters of the world have inspired a whole mythology unparalleled in history. And this is a core location, right? In history is how we explain things, right? In history, right? Unparalleled in all of history, okay? Unparalleled simply means not comparable. Nothing else can compare with this particular set of mythologies that have been inspired, right, by deep waters, okay? Then number 5, right? Neither of the boys, and again here, remember whenever you see neither of, right, it's always singular, right? Neither of, because it's 0, right? Neither of, I'm discounting both, so 0 is always singular. And then, of course, the word yesterday controls the tense to be in the past. So the past singulate form is was. Neither of the boys was present yesterday to receive the award from the principal. Is Mr. Pang going okay in terms of speed? Are you all okay? Okay, if you're not okay, please let me know, all right? Shout out or something, and then I will try to adjust my speed accordingly. Okay, can I move on to the next page? Okay, great. So please give yourselves a score at the bottom of each page so that you can tabulate easily. Yuwen, please mark your work along with us and do your corrections, okay? Yep. Make sure that all of you are doing your corrections, your annotations, and your marking and tabulating, right? So if you tabulate your scores, then it'll be easier for you to analyze your common errors, right? And that's the whole purpose of doing practice papers. We spot patterns and areas of weakness. We address those areas. We become better, and then we become more competent in our next paper, right? So that's the whole point of this, right? So again, don't worry if you join us late. You can always catch the earlier part of this in the recording I will post at the end of today. But please remember to mark your work and tabulate your scores, right? And I should see a total for both booklet A and B at the end of today's session. Okay, so the letter, okay, and then it, right? So obviously in this case, right, we have to do elimination, right? Process of elimination. So Fatima seals the letter before puts it, cannot be. Okay, Fatima sealed the letter before putting it into the letterbox, possible. Fatima has sealed the letter before puts, definitely impossible, because has sealed and puts doesn't, are not compatible. And Fatima is sealing the letter before will put, again, is not compatible in terms of its verb form. So the only possible answer is 2 by our process of elimination. Okay, so Fatima sealed the letter before putting it into the letterbox. The clue also here is before, right? Before something happened, right? Usually is a continuous action that is interrupted by a singular action. Okay, remember, past continuous tense usually involves a continuous action being interrupted by another action in the past. Okay, so that is consistent with the answer for question 6, okay? Right, so this one is used to giggle. So this was an action, right? Something that she did, right? And then used to tells me it's the past. Therefore, if I use a question tag, positive becomes negative. It's didn't she. She used to giggle like a child, didn't she? Used to giggle is an action. Used to tells me it's in the past. And therefore, if it's a question tag, positive becomes negative, right? Number 8, Debbie cannot keep pace with all of the trackers as she is not as fit. All of the trackers, therefore, this is a pronoun that replaces all of the trackers, therefore refers to cannot be as fit as them. Okay, them. This is a pronoun object, an object pronoun, okay? Because I'm referring to them, they are not the subject of this, they are the object of the sentence, okay? Question number 9. So this is an object pronoun. Question number 9. He waited for his missing daughter for years when he saw her on the streets one day. Okay. So he, in the past, when he saw, so this is definitely in the past. Okay. And therefore, this answer must also be in the past. I cancel out all the present forms of it, and I'm left with searched and had been searching. So notice here, he searched for his missing daughter for years when he saw her on the streets. Doesn't work. Why? Because you can't have a one-to-one verb format. Okay, so had been searching for his daughter is the only possible answer. Okay, so that's the answer. I know it doesn't quite fit into the 3-2, 2-3, 4-3, 3-4 format. But in this case, it's just a process of elimination. Because you can't possibly have he searched for his missing daughter for years when, right? He searched when. There must be a continuous thing that was interrupted by a singular action. So in this case, he saw her as a singular action and it interrupts the searching. Okay, so there must be a continuous form in the verb form here because there is an interruption and this entire sequence happens in the past. Okay, so he had been searching for his missing daughter for years when he suddenly saw her on the street one day. Okay, or when he saw her on the street one day. All right, so that's question number 9. And question number 10, please understand that this is if, right? So the connotation here is that if any visitor comes, please ask them to ask for their particulars, right? So which is the connector or the modal connector that best fits the meaning of if? Could, might, would, should. Obviously, it should, right? Okay, because again, in this case, should refers to something that has a probability of happening and has some form of connection, right? So there's some suggestion that there is a consequential or cause and effect relationship involved in this. None of the other modal connectors do. So the answer should be should. Should any visitors come, please ask them to ask for their particulars. Now, this is an unusual structure. We don't generally talk like this in English, right? Okay, I don't think you normally talk like this or write like this, but it's a good thing to know because it's a very formal way of addressing someone, right? So if you say something like, if anybody comes, please ask them for their particulars, it's actually a casual tone. If you're talking to your boss or to someone who's more important than you, then you would want to use a more formal tone. You use the word should instead of if. So should anyone come, please ask them for their particulars. It's a more suitable tone to use if you are speaking to someone who is more important than you, that you want to show respect for. Okay, so this is a life lesson, not so much a grammar lesson. If you want to show respect for an elder or a person of superior position, if you're speaking to the principal and you're asking for the principal to do you a favor, you would use the word should instead of if. All right. Should someone come, could you please refer them to my table? Should someone come, could you please inform them that I'm in the computer lab? Right? That's how I would speak to the principal. But if I'm speaking to you as a student, right, your social standing may be lower than mine, then I would say, if someone comes, please tell them I'm in the computer lab. If someone comes. Got it, everybody? So the word if and should are both usable, but they signify different tone, right, and different levels of formality. Okay, so this has implications in your situational writing as well. Okay, if you want to write something to the principal, email, then maybe you should consider using the word should. Okay, so that's just something I thought might be interesting for you all to know. Okay, next page, 11. Okay, to accidents. So I'm talking about their vulnerability, right? Vulnerability to accidents. Okay, if you have any words in any of the options you don't understand, do quickly type it out. And then I will try to explain it, okay? But if you're okay, I will just move on to the next one. If I'm going too fast and I miss that particular word, type it in the chat group and I will address that word along the way, okay? Right, so question number 12, Aunt Zoe, what back home with heavy bags of groceries after a long walk? Okay, so heavy bags of groceries suggests that this is not an easy task that she's performing, right? There's a lot of weight and she is obviously being burdened by it, okay? So in this case, the answer cannot be paste because paste has this idea about setting the pace. Cannot be amble because amble has the idea of being very relaxed in the way that you're walking. Cannot be proud because proud has the idea about stealth, right? You're trying to conceal your movements. So the only possible answer is trudge. Trudge has the idea of like your steps being very heavy, okay? Or the idea of your tiredness, all right? In the way that you are conducting yourself, okay? So the answer is number 3. Okay, proud, I already mentioned, has the idea of very stealthy movement. So you prowl around, right? Means you don't want people to detect your presence, okay? When you prowl, you don't want people to detect your presence, okay? Question number 13, our pioneers went through grave to ensure the survival, okay? So this is obviously something that involves survival, okay? So it cannot be encounters because this is neutral. Encounters can be positive or negative. Experiences tend to be positive. And commotions tend to be more like disturbances, okay? So the only possible answer is peril. And peril simply means danger. Okay, so the answer is 1. Okay, perils. Perils are dangers, okay? Extreme danger that can threaten one's life or well-being. Okay, that's a peril. Okay, though I think most people don't use this word nowadays, right? Peril is quite uncommon in normal vocabulary, okay? You just say danger, okay? We need to have what measurement in order to make a model of the building. So a model, right, always means that it is exact, okay? In other words, it's translatable if you multiply those dimensions. So a model simply means you shrink down the dimensions of something until it becomes a scale that you are able to handle, but you are able to multiply that scale outwards to construct something exactly the same as its model, okay? So it must be very, very precise, okay? It is the precise measurements, right? So it's perfect, exact, okay? Without any room for error, okay? No room for error, down to the millimeter. That's precise, okay? And question number 15, Honey was so upset. So the upsetness, right? Please, this is not passed away, right? This is not sufficient to cause death, right? Because being upset causes you to pass out, okay? Pass out means to lose consciousness, okay? So you are so angry, all the blood rushes to your head, right? And then you get overcome with emotion and then you lose consciousness. You black out for a moment, okay? You lose your consciousness and your composure. That's what being upset to the extreme can sometimes do to you. Okay, so again, tabulate your scores upon 5, all right? I'm taking it that so far, nobody has any disputes or lack of clarity with my explanations. All good. Give me a thumbs up if you're good to go on to the next one, right? Thank you. There's some movement in the pages, the order of the pages, so don't be too disturbed, okay? I'll just navigate along with you all, right? Okay, so like I said, there's some movement, so we skip over to question 16, okay? That is on the following page, okay? So this has to do with climbing a particular mountain that is like filled with ice, okay? So this passage has to do with mountain climbing, okay? So descending abruptly, okay? So the word descending abruptly is the word plunging, okay? So he was plunging down the sheer mountain. This has the idea of falling, right? Okay, right, falling down. Plunging has the idea of falling down. No other word here has the concept or idea of falling down, okay? Dashing, propelling, and immersing all do not have the idea of falling down, okay? If you need any clarification of any word, remember, just park it in the chat and then I will explain it to you, okay? Right, number 2, evade. This is quite simple, right? Evade simply means to dodge, right? The boulders, right? And notice here, I'm writing the answer above the underlined word. Why? Because I want to read the sentence with the word there. So I will read, he tried desperately to dodge the boulders that raced up to him from below. Okay, dodge the boulders that raced up to him from below. So when I read it right, then I hear that it's fluent and it makes sense. That is my check. So I use my ears. Remember I told you all this? You all need to read out the answer and you need to listen to it because you're engaging 2 different centers of your brain. One visual and the other auditory. And when you engage both, you have twice as much processing power. Imagine having twice as many CPU cores doing a task. So always remember to read it out loud. Don't be stingy with your voice so that you can engage both cores of your brain in engaging to check whether your answer is correct or not. Okay, so that's number 2. Answer is also 2. Okay, number 3, gingerly. Now this word gingerly has the connotation of carefully. All right, so obviously the answer is carefully Okay, so that's 3. And the word carefully connotes when you say someone is ginger, that means there's some kind of injury involved. Okay, so when you say someone got to his feet gingerly, right, there's this idea that this person is somehow injured. That means his movement is not completely normal. And that not normal has been caused by hurt or injury he has just sustained. So for example, if you punch someone, then they hold their face gingerly, right? That means that they are not able to hold their face properly because it hurts. There's an injury. So they hold it very carefully, right? So as not to cause pain or to aggravate the injury. So that's the idea of gingerly. It's a good word to use in case you want to denote injury and movement that results from the injury. Okay, so you're saying someone moved in an injured manner is gingerly. Okay, so it's a very good word to use. All right, thank you very much. Javen, thank you so much for admitting the people along the way. Okay, I really appreciate that. That helps me to concentrate on the questions much more easily. Okay, so we go on to question number 4. So question number 4, I'm sorry, I forgot to, I didn't. Okay, so question number 4, he made an effort. Okay, so he made an effort. It's actually the word endeavored. Okay, some of you actually ask me, what is the meaning of the word endeavored? Okay, and the word endeavored simply means to try, right? So he tried to stay conscious. He tried his best not to lose consciousness, right? So to make an effort, to try, to endeavor simply means to not give in, to not give up, to continue doing something, to try without failing, or to try without giving into failure. Okay, so that is endeavored. Again, a very good word to substitute in for tried. So if you want to say that he tried his best, you can say he endeavored to do his best. Okay, so instead of using the very boring tried to do this or tried to do that, right? You can use the word they endeavored. Okay, in both your writing as well as in your oral. So you might want to say something like, they might ask you, what's your favorite hobby? You might want to say, I have endeavored to learn how to skydive. Okay, instead of saying I've tried skydiving, right? You might want to use the word endeavored. Okay, because endeavored is a very good word that connotes the idea of giving your best and not giving up. Okay, endeavored. I have endeavored, right, to learn how to water ski. All right, I have endeavored. It's a nice word. All right. And finally, the word derelict. Okay, derelict has this concept of like falling into disrepair, not being in a good state. Okay, so if you look at all the 4 words, right, the only word that has this idea that things are not in a good state is the word deserted. Because that means that it was once occupied, but then people have left it, abandoned it. So when you abandon something, right, it falls into disrepair. Okay, so the idea about derelict being deserted is the only possible answer. Okay, so that means it has fallen into disrepair. It is in a very bad state. Okay, something is not in a good state. It's derelict. Okay, so you might want to say a derelict house, or you might want to say that, if somebody abuses their body, right, and they take drugs, and then their body falls apart, and then they're like in very poor health, right, you can say that they are derelict body. Okay, that means that the body has been abused, has been abandoned, has not been taken good care of, and then it's falling apart. So it can actually either refer to a physical place, like a house, a building, a room, or it can refer to a person, but metaphorically, but not literally, but figuratively, right? Because the person's body is not taken care of and not cared for, therefore is falling apart. Derelict. Okay, so that's a good word to use. Again, because it's more expressive than normal words. Okay, so you can use this vocabulary section actually to like pump up your vocabulary and acquire certain words that you can use instead of the normal words. So you see all these underlying words, right? These are words that you normally use, right? You can use these other words that are the answers to pump up your vocabulary in your compositions and in your oral responses. Okay, so that's just one way to make one paper count multiple times, right? So you're not just doing one paper once, but you can use the paper for oral, you can use the paper for writing, you can use the paper for comprehension and other things. Okay, so that's one idea. Okay, now let's go to the visual text, which is traditionally the area that you all tend to not perform very well in, even though it's very easy. Okay, so again, I'm not asking very much, just annotate according to the picture. Oh, I'm sorry, I got one question about the vocabulary. I go back first. Okay, disengage. Disengage here simply means to remove or to like take away. Okay, so for example, right, let's say you have like a connection, right? You connect something together, you disengage it means you disconnect it. Okay, so when something is connected together, it's engaged, right? When something is disconnected, right, it's disengaged. So physically, it can be wires, right? It can be like internet connection, right? But figuratively, it can be your feelings. So I'm very engaged, meaning I focus on what's going on. I'm very disengaged, means I'm not focused, I'm distracted. I'm not paying attention to you. So I'm engaged with this lesson versus I'm disengaged from it. So physically, it can refer to a wire, a connection, an internet relay or whatever. And figuratively, it can refer to your feelings, your focus, and your attention being put to something or not. Engage versus disengage. Okay, Yuan, I hope that answers your question. Okay, now let's go back to visual text. Okay, so again, like I said, traditionally not our strongest point. Okay, so question number 21. What's the main aim? Now, the main aim is here. Okay, I show you. It is Environmental Awareness Week. And I would like go further and circle the word awareness. So when you talk about awareness, right, you are trying to raise public education. Okay, you are trying to raise the level of the public's knowledge about a topic. Okay, so when you say that something, right, requires public awareness, or awareness, you're saying that people are not paying enough attention to it and they don't know enough about it. So for example, I might say that awareness about the situation in Ukraine is fading rapidly because people have lost interest and attention, right? What do I mean? I mean that the public is no longer paying attention to the Russia-Ukraine war, for example. They have shifted their focus to other wars and other conflicts. So I need to raise awareness of it once again. Therefore, the answer should be to educate the public on protecting the environment. Why? Because there's not sufficient focus, attention, and awareness of the topic. So I need to use this activity, this essay writing competition, to raise awareness, these talks that are arranged to raise awareness, okay? So the main aim, that's pretty straightforward. Usually, where can you find the main aim? In the title of the visual text. So look around the title or the subtitle, right, of the visual text to find the answer to the first question, okay? Usually you can find the main aim, or what is the purpose of this article, or what is the article trying to do. You can find it usually in the title or the subtitle, right at the top of the first page of the visual text, okay? Secondly, right, so he's talking about recycling of wastewater, okay? So in this case, recycling of wastewater in Singapore, I'm looking for, right, something that has to do with recycling wastewater in Singapore. So down here, the quest for fresh water in Hall 4, right? Singapore's solutions for treating wastewater. So notice the keyword water, okay? And then the keyword Singapore is what guides my attention. And of course, the answer is Hall 4 lah. Okay? So, sorry, I just stopped here so y'all can quickly highlight, circle, whatever. I know the pages are a bit messed up. I apologize. Okay, let me know if you need a bit more time. And again, if I'm going too fast, you can always revisit any questions you missed by fast forwarding the video later on. Okay, so again, let me come back to this. Therefore, the answer is quite clearly Hall 4. Okay, answer is number 3, Hall 4. Why? Because the water, Singapore. Okay, so I look for keywords, I circle, highlight in a question, I go back to the visual text, I circle, highlight the keywords in the visual text, I tally them both up, and then I match the answer accordingly. Cannot go wrong one, okay? Slow and steady wins the race in this section. Don't rush through, don't disregard keywords and then get to the wrong answer. Because remember, visual text at the core, right, is trying to trick you. Why is there 4 options? Because they want to trick you with the other 3 so that you will not choose the correct one. And they're dividing between people who pay attention to the question and people who don't. So in this section, remember, speed is your enemy, not your friend. Okay? Speed is your enemy, not your friend. If you rush through this section, you can guarantee yourself that at least 1 or 2 marks will be lost to carelessness. And if you're going further up the AL scoring, if you're going up to AL2, AL1, AL3, then you know that every mark literally counts, right? So 2 marks can literally mean the difference between 1 AL and 2 AL points. So be very careful and cautious, especially in visual text. You don't want to lose marks here, okay? So next one, which of the following statements is not true about the event? Okay, I'm just going to cut to the chase and explain to you what is the answer, and I won't eliminate lah, okay? Because I got no time. So it's sponsored by 50 organizations. Okay, where do I find this? Again, don't worry, I will come back to this. I find this here, right at the bottom here. Okay, participation of more than 50 organizations, right? So this one is my source. So participation is not equals to sponsorship. Okay, so I think 1 or 2 of you asked me very cleverly, what is a sponsorship? Okay, a sponsorship is when the organization gives you money to run the event so that their name can be featured. You all get what I mean? That means, like if you watch YouTube, right? Or if you watch like TV, right? You see that there's like some brands that are featured in the video, or the YouTuber or the video will purposely mention certain brands. This happens a lot in like Korean dramas, in Chinese dramas, right? Even in like YouTube videos, there'll be product placements, and then the people will be paid money, or they will be given free product to like promote the use of that product and say how good it is. Okay, so in that case, right, the sponsorship, right, is supposed to give a positive image to the product that is paying money for it. So this is not sponsorship, it's just participation. So therefore, it's not true. Okay, So the answer is number 3, simply because it is not true of the events. They don't have 50 sponsors, they do have 50 participants. And that's a big difference, okay? Yeah. And then the next one, third paragraph, this refers to, what does it refer to? So let's go back up to the third paragraph, okay? And then let's look at this here, and then let's connect that to unexpectedly the ice fractured and his body plunged in. This is the polar bear, right? And this is what is never going to happen, right, in the past, okay? So this would never have happened in the past. So what is this? This is the ice fracturing, giving way underneath the polar bear, and then the polar bear falling into the water. In the past, because before global warming became a serious issue, the ice was very thick. So it was able to bear the weight of a huge, giant adult polar bear who weighs like several hundred kilograms. But now, because of the thinning of the ice due to global warming, it cannot support the weight and the bear will fall in. That's very unusual. Okay, so that's the point that the article is trying to make. So if I go back here again, then I'm actually talking about this refers to the fracture of the ice, right? Yeah. So the ice fracturing, giving way, and then the polar bear falling into the water instead of being able to walk on the ice and get to the seals. Okay. So okay, good. So no questions so far. Why was the polar bear's cub nearing death? Okay, so let's go back into the passage again. Okay, nearing death, right? So over here, we see that the feeble cub, right? Emaciated and near death, okay, and struggled to feed it to keep it alive. So the key here is that the reason why the cub is so feeble, by the way, feeble means weak, okay, emaciated means like scrawny, like almost like skin and bones, okay. So the reason why the cub is so scrawny, the reason why the cub is so weak is because the mother is unable to feed it enough. So it is obviously malnourished. Okay, it's obviously malnourished. It isn't getting sufficient food, sufficient times in order for it to grow up healthy. So therefore, it is near death. Okay, so if I go back to the question, the answer is severely malnourished, which means not enough food. Okay, not enough food, right? Again, please tabulate your scores for this page before we go on to the last 3 questions of booklet A, and we can do a master collation of marks. I'll give you a few minutes, okay? Right. So far, everybody okay? Am I going too fast? No, okay, good. Okay, so what did the polar bear do as soon as she found out that the ice she was standing on cracked? So what did the polar bear do? Basically, if I go back over here, I can show you what she did. Okay. Okay, the ice beneath her cracked. She tried walking back to the ice she was on before. So that's what she tried to do, okay? She tried to walk back to the ice she was on before. That is basically her action when the ice cracked, right? So she tried to backtrack, tried to walk back, okay? Tried to backtrack, tried to walk back on the ice that she was on. Okay, so she attempted to walk back to the ice she was on before, which is the stable ice, right? It wasn't going to crack, right? So what is the outcome for the polar bear and her cub? So I'm looking for outcome, result. What happened to them in the end? And if I go back to the passage, I'm sorry for the movement. I hope you are not too bothered by it. Please don't look at the screen. It might make you seasick. Okay, so her body was now overwhelmed with fatigue. She started to sink into the dark blue water, still hanging onto her cup. So her cup and her are together. She's holding onto the cup with her mouth, and the both of them sink into the dark waters, and then the world goes black. Obviously, death, right? Okay, death by what? Death by drowning. Okay, they are in the water, right? They did not succumb to hunger, they succumbed to drowning. Okay, so very sad, tragic end. And of course, that's the whole point. It's supposed to make you feel sad for the polar bear and the cub so that you will be motivated to do something about it, right? That's the whole purpose of this article, to create empathy in order to spur you to action. Again, to create empathy in order to spur you to action. And this is important because when you write your stories, right, you must always bear in mind that everything you write must have a purpose. Okay, whether you are convincing someone, informing someone, entertaining someone, or causing someone to feel sad about something, to the point that they are willing to do something about it, right? Is your purpose, right? Even people who write stories for fun, they are writing it for a purpose. They want to hook you. They want you to be interested and continue to read their stories so that they can continue to write stories, right? So every writer has their agenda very clearly in their minds, which means when you, boys and girls, write anything, please always have a clear, conscious idea about what you're trying to achieve. For compositions, it will usually be to entertain the reader, right? To connect with the theme, connect with the picture, and then through that, entertain your readers and not make it so boring that they have to sit through another composition on the same topic, right? So that's kind of something you need to keep in mind. Finally, what's the purpose of the statement? Good old times can only be reminisced. Reminisce means to remember. It comes from the word remember. Okay? Reminisce, as you can see from the spelling SC, right? SC, yeah. It usually has a French kind of a source or root word. If it begins or has the word SC somewhere in it, either Latin or French in origin, okay? So this word reminisce simply means to remember. In other words, I can no longer go back to these times. I can only remember them. In other words, they are gone forever. I can no longer go back to those times ever again. So therefore, the answer is 1. Irreversible consequence. Meaning, I cannot go back to the past anymore. I can only remember it in my head as a memory. Okay, so I cannot reverse the consequences of global warming. And that's the key word, right? I must focus on the key word here, right? So this one, right, is kind of like an author and me question, okay? This is the only author and me question in the entire set. Most of the questions are think and search, okay? Any questions? Please tabulate your score upon 28 and then write the master score upon 28 on the cover of your booklet A, okay? So upon 28, 1 minute. Okay. All good, everybody? Can I go on to booklet B? Let's see how much we can accomplish, okay? Now, at 3 o'clock, if I'm still going and you need to go, please go ahead, okay? There's no need to inform me about it. If you have a prior appointment, you can go. Then remember to tune in to the recording at the end of the session, right? I thank you for your kind attention. Okay, so remember for this section, I want you to write down the answers together with the alphabet. Don't just write the alphabet. That's a bad habit. And remember to cancel out when you finish using something, okay? So water on the earth is turned into water vapor, right? By the sun, okay, into water vapor. Water becomes water vapor, right? So there's a transformation of it, okay, into water vapor. Okay, the droplets are too tiny to fall. They float in the air, but they rise higher. Okay, as they rise higher, the word higher gives you the clue about the directionality of it. They rise higher above the earth. Okay, above. Okay, so it goes up above the earth. And then the word coalesce is an interesting word. Coalesce means to come together. Okay, and it refers to how the water droplets condense, right? Or they gather together, they aggregate together to form these big, bigger drops, right, than the original ones, right? So the coalescing of the droplets becomes rain, all right? So the condensation of it. So as the water drops reach a critical size, they are exposed to. So this is a collocation, okay? Exposed to gravity, okay? Exposed is always exposed to, right? Is exposed to gravity, is never exposed to any other thing. And that is what they fall back to earth as rain. So this occurs when they coalesce, right? So therefore, I'm looking at the connector when. That is when, okay? That is when they fall back onto the earth as rain, okay? You can also use the word why. That is why they fall down as rain, but there's no why, right? So the next best thing is when, right? They coalesce, and then that's when they reach a critical size, then they fall down, right? When they reach that critical size, okay? By the way, the word critical means like maximum, okay? Critical means maximum. Okay, in case you didn't know. Critical, as big as it gets, right? Critical mass. That means as big as it gets before something happens. Okay? And finally, it takes many thousands of water droplets to form together before this can occur, right? Before this can occur. It takes very many before this can occur. Many water droplets to form together before this can occur, right? So the condition for this to occur is for these droplets to be formed together, right? Precipitation is the word used to describe all the different ways in which water falls, all right? In which water falls to the earth. It is a major component of the water cycle. It's responsible for most of the fresh water. Some moisture comes as dew. So some moisture comes like this, while others, right? While other forms, right? Some moisture comes as this, while other forms are snow, sleet, and hail. Okay? So far, so good, huh? These various forms of precipitation, okay, various forms of precipitation will be welcomed by farmers, right, who are waiting for the life-giving rain, but cursed by the unfortunate ones whose houses, right? The houses belong to these people, right? So they curse the rain because their homes and their crops will be damaged, okay? By the icy hailstones that plunge to the earth like sheets of icy bullets. Okay? So again, tabulate your scores upon 10. I will give you a little bit of time just to settle it. Any questions, please ask through the chat. What is sleet? Okay, so sleet is when rain and snow combine together and fall at the same time. So a combination of wet snow, right? So snow and rain falling at the same time is sleet. Okay, and sleet is very dangerous because what happens is that snow, when it falls, right, it forms like a layer, right? A layer on the ground. And then the layer can be pushed aside because snow, right? It's like sand lah. You can push it aside, you can make like snowman with it. But when sleet falls, sleet is soft and slushy. It's kind of like your slushy in 7-Eleven, You imagine a slushy, yeah? So when the sleet falls onto the ground, right, it doesn't like gather in layers. It forms a puddle or a pool. And then that puddle or pool freezes over and it becomes very smooth. So imagine if that happens on a highway, right? If it happens on a road, what will happen is that when the car drives past, right, it will not be able to have friction against the ground because the ice or the sleet is now forming a very thin and smooth layer, and cars skid, lose control, and then they, basically spin and impact against the side of the road. And then when one car does that, all the other cars behind will also do the same thing, and it creates massive traffic accidents that can stretch for miles because one leads to another, and in America, entire stretches of highways can be paralyzed because of sleet. Okay, sleet falling and then freezing on the ground to form all these long sheets of what they call black ice, because it looks like normal road, but it actually is like totally smooth, right? So imagine the tires are just skidding along it without any friction or purchase, okay? A slushy is kind of like when, you melt ice and it hasn't completely become water yet. That in-between state between ice and water, that's kind of slushy. That's kind of sleet, right? When sleet, snow mixes with water and falls, it becomes this state of slush. Then when it falls, it forms a puddle or a pool, and then it becomes ice, okay? Right, so that's basically sleet, okay? Sleet, just think of it as water and ice falling together, right? Rain and ice falling together. Okay, question 39. It can be, right? So be is a verb, right? It can be easy, right? So it's an adjective, right? Adjective that describes it, right? So it is easy, right? To forget the simple pleasure, right? Pleasure is spelled with a P-L-E-A-S-U-R-E, right? Studies have shown that if you engage in hobbies, and hobbies here is plural, right? So therefore, many no S after the verb. No S, I cancel the S because this is plural in format. Solving is without the E. Remember the silent E, okay? So whenever I have an ing after an e, the e is replaced by the I. Okay, so the e and the I basically replaces or is replaced by. Okay. Then active is spelled A-C-T-I-V-E, right? So staying mentally stimulated. Okay. And here, this is a verb, right? Stimulated. So staying mentally stimulated, right? Can boost brain power. Reading can also aid stress reduction no matter how much stress, because stress is not quantifiable. You can't count stress. So you need to use a quantifier that is uncountable. Okay, so this is a UC or uncountable quantifier. Okay, countable would be many, a few, right? Some. Okay, next. Engrossed is spelled E-N-G-R-O-S-S-E-D. Engrossed, okay, double S, okay, no double G. Yeah, if you think about it, I don't think there are any words in English that have double G except exaggerated, right? Okay, yeah, there are very few words with double G, okay? Exaggerated does though, okay? Right, next. An engaging article will distract you. Distract you is the key. Distract you from, right? You distract someone from something. You distract someone from something, okay? Okay, good. So far, no questions. Excellent. Contribute is spelled this way. We are doing well. Okay. If you want to make, why? Because of the word can. Can tells me that this is a future form, right? If you want to make positive changes, you can, right, read a book, and this book can challenge and motivate you. Okay, so this one upon 12. Okay, please total your score upon 12, right? So far, is it looking okay for are your scores okay? Can, right? Yeah, right. Remember that we did this within time limit, and I hope that you all didn't have to take too much time, right? So this is indicative, right? The difficulty level of this paper is quite fair, I must say, all right? Not too difficult, right? Not too unmanageable. Okay, either that or you all are getting used to the difficulty level of these papers, which is good, right? Which is good. Okay, let's go. This one, I know there are going to be very many alternatives. So if you write your alternative answer, please make sure you write the number next to it, okay? Right? So if you want to type an answer, please type to me with the number attached to it, so I know which one you're talking about, okay? I will just do 4 or 5, then I will stop to look at your alternative answers, okay? Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, one more, then I'll stop. $53, I think built. No, absolutely not. Okay. Many are built with solar panels. You mean people are built with solar panels? It doesn't make sense, okay? Please test the logic of your answer, right? You have to think about, that's why I wrote the word bracket with people there. Can you see I wrote bracket people there? So many people. So the moment you know that the many refers to people, right, it already limits many of your answers already. You know it can't make sense if you're talking about the build or have or something like that. You know it's wrong, right? Because it's many people are familiar with solar panels because they see them on spaceships and on rooftops. They are familiar with it because they see it there. Okay? Okay. So far, so good. Nobody else. Nice. 53, many are adapted. Many people are adapted with so how do you adapt people with solar panels? Right, Nicholas? I'm not too sure how that works. Okay, why rather than ask me why can't it be, can you ask yourself why is it? Can or not? Instead of asking me why can't it be, can you ask yourself the question, can it be or not? Does it make sense or not? Right? Does it pass the threshold of logic that people are adapted with? So, you know, what does it mean? If there's no meaning, then it can't work. You must remember this closed passage is for normal people. If people read your sentence and cannot understand what you're saying, your answer is wrong for sure. It must pass the common sense test. Okay. So whenever you read your sentence back, right, and you listen to it, right, you imagine that you're a different person, and you're hearing someone say it on the street. If you go, what did the person say? It sounds weird. Then the answer is confirmed, definitely 100% wrong. But if you listen to it and it sounds normal, yeah, sounds like something you would hear someone say, then yeah, most likely, I'm not saying 100%, most likely is correct. Okay, so the common sense test is the most underrated, but yet the most important test you need to apply in closed passage. Read the sentence with the word and then assess it as a normal human being. Don't need to be expert, right? Just normal human being. And it should tell you whether it's correct or wrong. Okay, good. Question 51, about, no, the word about is, Clarice, the word about is estimated, about, roughly about, but the word estimated is already there. So you cannot use something that doubles the same meaning, is redundant. Okay, estimated already carries the meaning of about. So you cannot about. You get what I mean, Clarice? Okay, so no, cannot be about. Right, thank you. Okay, good. All right, let's move on. Okay, I'll do the next few, right? Okay, so water to what? A steam turbine. Okay, to power, to run. Okay. Question. Okay, that's quite a lot. Let me just sift through. I'll name you. Okay. Let's see. Okay. 56. Let's see. Heat is then used to boil water to spin a steam turbine. No, you don't spin the turbine. Yeah, right. The shaft of the turbine spins, but the entire turbine is an engine that runs. Okay, it's an engine that runs. Not the whole thing doesn't spin. It's just the shaft that spins, right? So it's not accurate to say that you boil the water to spin the turbine. The whole turbine doesn't spin. Only the shaft and the blades do. So no, cannot be spin. Okay, wow, so many. Okay. So 56 cannot be turned. So again, the whole turbine doesn't turn. It's only the shaft that turns. 57, I already wrote generating what? Yuan, do you see the word generating there? Yeah, so it's not generating. 57, producing. Okay, producing electricity, I'll accept. You do produce electricity. okay, producing electricity. Again, spin cannot. Supplying electricity, yes, okay, I'll accept supplying electricity, okay. Right, so turn cannot, I already told you turn cannot. Question 60, found with very, no, it's not found with, it's associated, it's connected to. The idea of the solar energy is associated with little maintenance. It's not that it's found with, it's not found with, it's not discovered to be, okay? So cannot be found. Question 60, made with very little. No, it's not made, what? Solar energy is not made, what? Right? You don't make solar energy from nothing. It comes from the sun. Okay, so you cannot say made. Right? This one only associated, I would say. Okay. Along is a renewable source of energy along with very, no lah. I don't understand the state. Actually, I don't understand the along. The structure doesn't make sense at all. It's not even grammatical. Okay, so it doesn't work. Installed with, I don't understand. The source of energy is not installed lah, right? You must make sure that your verb is able to work with your noun. Your noun is the renewable source of energy, right? Renewable source of energy cannot be installed with little maintenance and easy installation. Cannot be installed with lah. It doesn't work, okay? Yeah, it doesn't work, I'm afraid. Okay, let's move on. Okay, I think I have, yeah, I've addressed everybody. Okay, good. The more controversial ones are over, gladly, okay? I think the rest are quite straightforward lah. Okay, let's see. No, you cannot be exposed to electricity, Claire. So exposure doesn't work. And exposure should be singular anyway. So, but no, exposure to electricity doesn't work. You don't get exposed to, you get access to it. Let's see. 63 will. 63. Steep course and remote terrain will make it impractical. No, may. It may or may not, right? So it's not for certain. Will is too strong a model, so I cannot accept will. Also, steep course and remote terrain also make it okay, also. Okay, I accept also. So also make it impractical and impossible to extend the electric grid. Yep, okay. Can make it, okay, I accept can. Can make it difficult or impossible. Okay. 64, the effect on residents. No, it's the impact on residents. Because the word effect is not strong enough. Impact carries the idea of a very big difference. Okay. Effect, no idea about whether it's big or small. Okay, so I'm sorry, I cannot accept effect. Okay, Javen. Unfortunately for 63, no. It's not fortunately or unfortunately, it's just a statement of fact. Right? There's no judgment of whether it's fortunate or unfortunate. So Stephanie, no. No, unfortunately. 65, children are more able, no. More likely, I'm talking about the percentage chance that they can complete, not about their ability. So no, able is not acceptable. Okay, Ariel, sorry. Able is more like whether they are able to or not. That's not the question here. Is the question is how likely? What's the percentage of chance that they will complete? It's a higher rate. Okay. Okay, very good. Thank you. We are done with this. And it's 3 o'clock. I'm obligated to inform you. Okay, so are you able to stick with me for a bit longer? Okay, we just finished this now. Right, thank you very much. Okay. Question 66. I'm just going to go through the answers. Right. He had finished all his homework. Okay, so again, I'm just following I becomes he, finished becomes had finished, my becomes his, right? And then homework, right? So do it systematically for reported speech, step by step, systematically. Make sure that your tenses change. Make sure that your adverbs of time also change. Make sure that your pronouns also change, right? So check these three main things out: pronouns, adverbs of time, and tenses, right? Do that as a checklist for reported speech, because they always like to test multiple items here, which I think is not fair, but never mind. Enough of my thoughts about that. Okay, question 67. Despite, you can use the fact that, but again, I think we are beyond that lah. We are more advanced by now. We don't need to use the shortcut despite the fact that, so despite not being, I'm sorry, despite, I apologize, wrong. I was thinking of something else. Despite having studied the language, despite having, I got it from has, right? So despite having studied the language for 3 years, and when the connector comes to the front, a comma takes its place, comma, Sam cannot write in French. Okay, despite having studied. Now, if you want to take the shortcut out, okay, yes, Nicholas will be continuing on to comprehension. If you cannot continue on, you are welcome to leave and then visit the video later, okay? Don't worry about it. Okay, so despite the fact that, you can use that, despite the fact that he has studied the language for 3 years, Sam cannot write in French is also acceptable, right? Despite the fact that. But I don't like that answer because, again, it kind of breaks synthesis rule number 5, which is the answer cannot be shorter than the answer cannot be longer than the question itself, right? The fact that adds length to it. Okay, so I'd rather not. But it's technically acceptable. Okay, so if any of you wrote despite the fact that he has studied the language for 3 years, comma, Sam cannot write, that's fine. Okay. Despite studying French for 3 years, can that work? Is it? Okay. Despite okay. Let me ask you this question in return, okay? Oh, okay. Sorry, I answered the easier question first. So despite having studied French for 3 years, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Pang also made a mistake, for 3 years, okay? Despite having studied French for 3 years, Sam cannot write in it is not acceptable because cannot write in it carries ambiguity, right? So you cannot swap the language and French, because there's some ambiguity there. So despite having studied the language for 3 years, Sam cannot write in it cannot work because the same idea of the main clause containing all of the proper nouns has been broken. So it cannot be it because that's the main clause. Sam cannot write in French. That makes sense. Sam cannot write in it, or Sam cannot write in the language, doesn't make sense because I don't know what is the language. Okay, so the subject must always follow the main clause. So Sam cannot write in French, must be intact. The French and the language cannot change place. Okay, next, remember synthesis rule number 2, right? The tense of the question cannot change. This is not reported speech, so I cannot change the tense. So in this case, right, if I put studying the language versus having studied the language, which one is the same and which one is a change in the tense? Can you all see the change? Because if I remove the has, and then I just put studying, I've changed, I've changed it from a past perfect into a continuous, right? Versus if I, despite having studied, then I keep the perfect form, right? I don't change it. That means the has becomes having, it's still a perfect form. I have not changed the tense. So it cannot be despite studying. When you see has studied, you have to shift it and maintain the format. Has becomes having. That means the has changes in its verb form, but it's not removed. If you remove it, then you are changing the tense already. Okay, so no, cannot be despite studying the language, despite having studied the language for 3 years. Okay, that is being true to the original verb form. and keeping synthesis rule number 2. So I'm going to put synthesis rule number 2. Tense cannot change. Okay? Otherwise, it will affect the time scale of the original. Okay, next one. Without. Okay? Pretty straightforward. Okay, don't mind. The bracket finally simply means that finally can take 2 positions here. Because it is an adverb, right? It's mobile. It can move around. Okay, so you can either say having finally written or having written a poem finally. Okay, the word finally can move, but it's correct in both cases because meaning doesn't change, tense doesn't change, right? The adverb doesn't affect either. Okay, so no problems there. Quite straightforward. Okay. My little cousin was so anxious that he forgot the lyrics. So the anxiety made him forget, right? So I'm actually using active passive here. That means I'm changing the position of the subject and the object. Okay, so it's no longer the anxiety. I have replaced my little cousin in the subject seat. So it's not the anxiety, it's he. So therefore, made him is removed because it's no longer in the passive form, it becomes direct. He forgot the lyrics. Okay, so the made him is removed because active becomes passive, or rather passive becomes active. Okay, was so anxious that he forgot the lyrics. Okay, let me look at some of your alternative answers. Okay, let me address this one. Question 68, Stephanie, can I write, I hurriedly left for work? Cannot, because you cannot change in a hurry to hurriedly. In a hurry and hurriedly, even though they sound the same, they are slightly different. Okay, hurriedly describes the action of leaving. In a hurry describes the action itself. So it's either I'm describing the action or I'm talking about the action itself. Okay, so it's slightly different. So please don't change the form of the word. If it's in a hurry, leave it as in a hurry. So cannot be hurriedly. Okay. Despite studying the language for 3 years, Sam cannot write in French. Despite studying, so already mentioned that. Okay, already explained that. 69, having to finally, no, don't insert to, right? So having finally, there's no need for a to there. The to is redundant and additional. So having to, don't do that, right? So having finally written or having written, right? Finally, please don't go with the having to. There's no having to. Never put to after having, right? At least for connectors and synthesis. Question 68, without remembering to wake up my sister. No, wake my sister up. Cannot be wake up my sister. Okay, wake up my sister is English already. Okay, so cannot. Okay, Lucas, wake my sister up. Okay, right. And then question, my little cousin was so anxious that it made him, no, cannot. So that it, what is the it, right? So anxious that it is already redundant. So anxious that he forgot the lyrics. So remember, do not put in redundant words, right? So it was so anxious that he forgot, so that, all right? So no, it made him, I will not accept, okay? Again, it made him is redundant. So anxious that he forgot the lyrics. Okay, Clarice, my little cousin was so anxious that it made him, again, I answered that. Despite studying it for, no, cannot. Despite studying it for 3 years, why do you put it there, Clarice? you cannot put it because there's nothing repeated. It's either the language or French. There's no repetition one. Do you get it, Glarys? If it's despite studying the language, he cannot write in the language. If it's the language, repeated, then you can replace one with it. But in this case, it's the language and French. There's no repetition. Got it? You only replace with pronouns when the exact noun itself is repeated twice. Then you repeat the second repetition with a pronoun. Okay? A pronoun that replaces the original noun. But these two nouns are unique. They don't repeat each other. French and the language, so cannot. Okay? All right, good. Okay, light speed. Let's go. Again, people, if you cannot stay, right, you are free to go, okay? I don't expect you to stay for the entire duration, right? Otherwise, let's go. Okay, so 2 words. Scarcely contain. Okay, the word is scarcely contain. 2-word phrase, right? House was too small for the writer's family, right? Because it could scarcely or barely contain. All right, must be 2-word, huh? Okay, yep. Ariel, I'm assuming that you're agreeing with me in your comment that the 2 nouns are unique. Okay, yeah, okay. Right? You're agreeing with me, right, Ariel? Okay, good. All right. So question 72. Why did the writer mention that they seem to live in perpetual darkness? Okay, so this is 2 marks. So highlight 2 marks here because I need 2 points, right? They lived in perpetual darkness means that there was the idea that there is not enough light. Okay, so perpetual darkness, not enough light. So let me go back here. Okay, so the surrounding trees blocked out much of the sunlight. That's point number 1. Okay, and then there was no electricity, right? So the kerosene lamps produce only a dim light. Okay, so this is point number 2, right? So number 1, the place where they lived in, trees blocked out the sunlight. Number 2, they could only use kerosene lamps, which produced the dim light. So that's why the house was always in perpetual darkness, all right? So their house was surrounded. So the key is surrounded by trees that block out sunlight, okay? If you copy that, that's fine. Okay, so this is point number 1. 1 mark. And they used kerosene lamps at night, which produced only dim light. Okay, so again, I'll highlight for you what are the keywords. So for the one, it's surrounded, surrounded by trees that block out sunlight. For the other, it's kerosene lamps. They produce only dim light. As long as you have these keywords, right, you will get 2 marks. Even if you're, there are some mistakes with your grammar or, your connection is not very smooth. As long as you have these 2 main points, you can mark yourself correct. Okay? This section does not penalize you for language or spelling. So no problems. Just make sure you have that. Yes, Nicholas, perpetual means constant. Perpetual means like always. Okay? It's always dark. And by the way, darkness does not mean the absence of light. Do you all agree with me? Darkness can be gradual. So darkness can mean like it's kind of twilight, right? That's also darkness. It's just a degree of how dark it is, okay? If you want to say it's totally no light, right, then you might say pitch black, right? Or utter darkness, right? Utter means complete, okay? But if there's no connector there, right, to describe the degree, then it's just referring to some main form, some subform, okay? Next one, okay. So how did the writer feel when he was young? He felt afraid, okay, right? And okay, let's see. Okay, over here, okay, superstitious fears, okay, right? Can you see here superstitious fears, right? So there's this idea about ghosts and malicious wandering spirits and the eerie appearance of the house. Okay, so all of these factors combined give us the idea that the author was quite afraid or not comfortable with living in that house. Okay. Yeah. You want to take a break or not? Short break for a while. You need a toilet break or whatever. Okay. Right. If you need to go to the toilet, you just go ahead. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, like I said, right? Therefore, the reason they were afraid of, and the keyword here is like ghosts and spirits. Ghosts and wandering spirits in the house. Okay? So the key is the feelings for the house, right? So you must always mention that they are afraid of ghosts and spirits in the house. Okay? You cannot just say they are generally afraid of ghosts and spirits, because ghosts and spirits can be anywhere, right? So you must have the idea that the ghosts and spirits are in the house. Okay, it's connected to the house, because the question is asking you about your feelings about the house. Okay, so being afraid is being afraid of ghosts and spirits in the house. So the key is in the house. If you don't write in the house, you just write they were afraid of ghosts and spirits, then your answer is incorrect. If you copy this entire sentence here, okay, where is it? The gloom was exacerbated by the superstitious fears mother passed on to us of ghosts and spirits. That one can, but you must copy the gloom was exacerbated by. Okay, because the gloom was exacerbated by connects the fear to the house, the gloom of the house, right? And then it's made worse by their fear of spirits or their superstitious fear of spirits. Okay. Fearful, yes, I accept fearful. Afraid, fearful. Okay. Dreadful cannot. Dreadful doesn't mean fearful. Dreadful is describing something else. It's not describing your feelings. Okay. Paris, do you get it? I can feel fearful, but I cannot feel dreadful. If I feel dreadful, right, then it describes something totally different already. Okay. It has to have the connotation of fear, right? Fear. So dread. You can use the word dread. I feel dread. But dreadful is describing something else. I give an example. He dreaded ghosts. That's fine. But you cannot say he is dreadful of ghosts. Cannot. Can you see that it doesn't work? You cannot say he is dreadful of ghosts, right? So he is dreadful, meaning he is awful. Okay? So it's a different thing altogether when you say dreaded versus dreadful. Be very careful about the forms of the words that you use, because the forms have very different meanings. Okay, dreaded and dreadful. Okay. Next, when he was a teenager, how did he feel about the house? He was embarrassed. Okay, he was embarrassed about the house, right? So let me show you over here. Okay, the next paragraph. Okay, embarrassment. Okay, and why was he embarrassed? Because if the friends dropped by before the chamber pots were emptied, right, he will be overwhelmed with shame. So the fear, the embarrassment, right, comes from the chamber pots. Okay. So their family used chamber pots instead of toilets. Okay. So that's what made him feel a sense of shame. Okay. You can also put shame if you do not use the word embarrassment. You can use the word shame or ashamed. Okay, shame, ashamed, all okay. Shame, ashamed, embarrassed, embarrassment, all of that's okay. Why? Because instead of using normal toilets, right, they use chamber pots. Okay, so chamber pot instead of toilet. Okay, all good, everybody. You all understand? Okay, so if you put something like his friends had nicer homes with proper plumbing, you copy from the text, huh? Not correct. You must compare the chamber pot to the nice plumbing. There must be a comparison. So you will say his friends had nicer homes with proper plumbing while they had to use chamber pots. Okay, but if you don't do a comparison between the chamber pot and the toilet, then your answer is wrong. There must be some comparison between the two so that he will feel shame, right? So it's not just that he's jealous of his friends, he's shameful because of his own toilet. Okay, so if you just say the friend has good plumbing, right? Good toilet, right? Then he is jealous, right? But it's because he sees the good plumbing and then he compares it to his own chamber pots that he feels a sense of shame, right? Or embarrassment, right? Yes, very good. So if you say the writer's friends had nicer homes with proper plumbing, but the writer had to use chamber pots, yeah, correct. That's perfectly correct. Okay, Clarice? It's a comparison between the two, and therefore you clearly show his shame. Okay, it's to show his shame, right? And there must be comparison. If there is no comparison, there's no shame one. You understand? No? If you are not comparing with someone else, right, you won't feel shameful, right? You will just be you, lor. Whatever you're doing is just you, lor. But if let's say you are compared with someone else, right, then you will feel a sense of inferiority, right? Let's say you are being compared for this, that, or the other. There's always the element of shame when there's comparison. That's why it's very wise not to compare. Do you understand? It's very wise not to compare. Don't compare yourself with another person because you will feel unnecessary shame. Everybody is different. We all have strengths and weaknesses. Like, don't ask the tortoise to compare with the hare and don't ask the lizard to compare with the snake. You know what I mean? It is very difficult to compare. Everybody is different, right? No point. Okay, next, what were the chamber pots used for? Very obviously, the chamber pots were used for, they were used to collect, please use the correct terms, urine and excrement. Please don't use pee and poop. Okay, if you use pee and poop, zero marks. Okay, you're not using the correct term that is used in the passage. Urine and excrement or feces, but feces is not the word used here, it's excrement. Okay, so just use what is given here. What dropping? You think you're a bird, is it? Only birds have droppings. Humans don't drop. Humans excrete. Do I make myself clear? Okay. Okay, Clarice, I will accept your answer, but cascading urine, the word cascading only happens when you pour it out. Cascading is like the waterfall effect. No? When you pour out, then all the water flows. So you cannot use the word cascading always with the word urine. Urine is just urine, okay? Right? When it's stored in a pot, it's not flowing. But when you pour it out, it becomes cascading urine. Okay? But I will accept it because it doesn't interfere with your answer. Okay? So urine and excrement. Okay, again, let's just highlight where we got it from, okay? So it's like blah, blah, blah. Okay. Now, where was it? Okay. Yeah, so that's where it's come from, Okay, so if you copy this, cascading urine mixed with excrement, that's fine. I won't penalize you, but remember, cascading urine has to do with the urine flowing, okay? So there's no need to use the word cascading. Urine and excrement. Why was the writer overwhelmed with shame? All right. She was ashamed of the chamber pot. So first of all, just the chamber pot themselves, okay, the chamber pot themselves causes her shame, and the smell they give off, okay, or their smell, okay. Anything to do with the smell is acceptable. Remember, this is a 2-mark question, okay. What were they used for? Why was she overwhelmed with shame? So there are 2 reasons, right? So she was ashamed of the chamber pot and of the smell they gave off. Okay, so 1 mark here, 1 mark here. Okay, 1 mark here, 1 mark here. Okay, that's how you get 2 marks. All right. 76. Okay, 2 instances to show that life was not always awful. 2 instances to show life was not always awful. Okay, sorry, over here. Okay, they had fun playing hide and seek and games of their own invention. And then they got electricity. Okay, so these are the two main things that made life more bearable. Okay, they could play games of their own invention and they got electricity. Okay. Okay, so enjoyed playing games and of their own invention, hide and seek. They got electricity when the writer was a teenager. Okay, so these are the two main points here. Okay, again, please always be conscious of any 2-mark question and not shortchanging your answers with only 1 point. Okay, 2 points, 2 marks. Be very consistent there. Right. Okay, let me just see if I can. Okay, is it okay? You all okay? Okay, so Clarice, if you write just the fun and games, there's only 1 mark, okay? Ariel, you know, you can write contain, that's fine. Okay, Ariel, you can write contain, okay? Collect or contain, both the same, right? The container is perfectly fine. Okay. All good? All right. So I move up, yeah, can. Okay, so this is the order. First, the kerosene lamps were used, then the light bulbs were used, then finally some teachers came to visit in that order, in the passage, okay? So kerosene lamps, then they upgraded to light bulbs when electricity came, and then during the teenage years of the author, the teachers came to visit and then commented on how the house looks very nice, okay? So that's 3, 1, 2. No problems there. Okay, coming to a very quick close. Come on, we can do it. Okay, so true or false? Okay, so the writer's house was haunted. Obviously false lah. Okay, let's do false true first. Okay, obviously false lah. Okay, they believed that it was haunted, but it was not, right? And then the writer was bothered about what Mr. Hooks thought when he saw the emptying of the chamber pot. Absolutely true. Yeah, absolutely true, right? Yeah. And then Mr. Yong was impressed by the writer's house. Again, absolutely true, right? Yeah, absolutely right. He was very impressed. Okay, so the house was eerie, true, but not haunted. Okay, how do I know it was eerie but not haunted? Because it's in a passage, right? It says that it was eerie, it was dark, perpetually dark and gloomy and all of that. But there was no mention of any actual haunting. Okay, it is not a ghost story, lah, right? So of course not lah. Okay. Then the writer was bothered about what Mr. Hooks said. True, right? So what bothered the writer, right? So the writer saw, right, Mr. Hooks was culturally superior, right? So we see this in the text, that the writer believes that Mr. Hooks is culturally superior, okay? And the writer thought he had formed a bad impression because of what he saw with the chamber pot, okay? So there's 2 points here. The fact that he's culturally superior means that the writer looks up to him, right? So the writer sees him as being very important, more important than herself. And then the next one that caused her to be bothered is that because he's such an important person, and then he saw this thing, right? He probably formed a bad impression of them, which is what made the author feel very bothered, okay? So 2 steps. saw him as a cultural superior, and then probably thought that he was forming a negative impression or bad impression because of what he saw with the chamber pot. Okay, so these are the two essential points that need to be there for this to work. If not, then it's not complete, it's not correct. Okay, you either get 1 point or 0. And you must have these two sub points in order to score that one main point. Culturally superior and had a bad impression of the family or had a bad impression of them. Okay. Lucas, are you still there? Can you please like angle your screen if possible? Thank you. Okay, so Mr. Yong was impressed by the writer's house. Yes, right. He said that it was a lovely setting that he admired. Okay, you can say he stopped to admire on the road, right? You can just copy the whole chunk about how he stopped to admire on the road before coming up to the house, right? But as long as you have the idea that he said that it was lovely, and then he stopped to admire it, right? That's correct. Okay, so there must be the idea about stating that it's lovely and stopping to admire. These are the two main points that qualify you for the score of 1. Okay, there's a lot of work to do for 1. Okay, then next one, the referent. Okay, it refers to the writer's house. Okay, again, I'm going to spin over to line 2. Okay, it stood on wooden stilts. It refers to the ramshackle wooden house. Okay, on the outskirts of Malacca. Okay, so it refers to the ramshackle wooden house. So as long as you write it refers to the writer's house, right? That's good enough. And lovely setting here refers to the surrounding with trees forming the backdrop. Again, I copy this from the passage. Coming to a quick close. Well done, everybody. Today is marathon session. Thank you very much for staying with me, okay? Okay, surroundings with trees forming the backdrop, right? Here, I copy exactly from the passage, okay? And I got it from line 34 as well, okay? Right here. Okay, so as long as you have the word trees forming the backdrop, good enough, right? So that's where I got it from, right? Trees forming the backdrop, right? Okay, and final question, and we're done for the day. Good job. We have 12 people left. Good job. Okay, so this one, significance of this sentence, right? Support with information. So this is an author and me question, right? So prevented me from noticing fell away. So the veil fell away, right? Meaning the author is not able to see something that she was not able to see before. Okay, so what is the veil? And what does it mean to fall away? It's basically 1 mark, 1 mark. So 1 mark, what is the veil? And 1 mark, what does it mean when the veil falls away? Okay, so what is the veil? Okay, the veil is the prejudice. Okay, the bias that the author had against the house. Okay, so the author no longer looked down on or disliked the house, right? Because before this, she was like, didn't like it because it's eerie, scary, all of that. But began to appreciate it from a different perspective. Because the perspective given to her by her art teacher, right, helped her to overcome her original dislike and see the house in a different light. Okay, so the 1 mark is the veil, and the veil is the dislike, right? The original fact that she couldn't see the beauty of the house, right? She disliked it. Then the veil falling off, right, is the fact that she can now begin to see the house in a different light or perspective. Okay, so 1 mark, 1 mark. No longer look down or dislike the house. Sorry, no longer look down or dislike the house. Is 1 mark. Okay, began to appreciate the house. Is another mark. Okay. Is the writer a girl or a boy? Actually, I'm not too sure. Yeah. I think it's a girl. Yeah, I think it's a girl, right? I think there are some pronouns in the story that indicate that she's a girl. Okay, yeah. Any questions? Anything? If not, can you please give a total score? Well done, by the way. Good job surviving an hour and 35 minutes. Well done, if you were with us from the very beginning. Okay, I'm sorry it took so long because I took some time to explain certain concepts. If I just like bullet train through, probably would have finished a lot earlier. Okay, so thank you all for your patience. I will stop the recording first, okay? And then I will open up the time for any questions, okay?